A friendship without borders, a promise forever. The sun dipped low over the horizon, casting golden hues across the sprawling fields of wheat that stretched as far as the eye could see. In a small town nestled between rolling hills, two boys, Ethan Carter and Amir Rahman, sat on the rickety wooden fence overlooking the fields, their legs swinging freely as they gazed at the endless sky above. Ethan and Amir had met on the first day of school when Amir's family, fleeing unrest in their homeland, had arrived in the small, tight-knit community. Despite their differences in culture, language, and background, the two boys had formed an unbreakable bond, becoming inseparable in a world that often seemed determined to keep them apart. Their friendship was built on late-night conversations beneath a blanket of stars, on shared peanut butter and honey sandwiches, on races through the golden fields, and on whispered secrets only best friends could trust each other with. They promised, as all young dreamers do, that they would always be there for each other, no matter where life took them. But life had a way of testing promises. As they grew older, the world began to pull them in different directions. Amir's father found work in another city, and before long, the news came that his family would be leaving. The night before his departure, the boys sat in their usual spot, the air between them thick with unspoken words. "We'll write," Amir said, forcing a smile. "We'll stay in touch. And one day, we'll see each other again." Ethan nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Promise?" Amir extended his pinky finger, and Ethan hooked his own around it. "Promise." The years that passed. At first, they wrote letters, long ones, filled with details about school, family, and all the small things that mattered. Amir told Ethan about life in the bustling city, the crowded streets, the new school where he struggled to fit in. Ethan wrote about the small town that never changed, the way the wheat fields still danced in the wind, and how he always saved a seat for Amir at their old lunch table. But as time went on, the letters became fewer. Life moved faster. Responsibilities grew heavier. College, careers, families, each new chapter of life pulled them further apart, until one day, the letters stopped altogether. Yet, in the quiet moments, they still thought of each other. A fateful encounter. Decades later, Ethan found himself in an unfamiliar city, walking through streets lined with small cafes and bustling markets. He had become a journalist, traveling the world, telling the stories of those who often went unheard. Yet, no matter how many places he visited, there was always one story left untold, the story of his lost friend. By chance, he entered a bookstore to escape the midday heat, the scent of old paper and fresh ink wrapping around him like a comforting embrace. As he browsed the shelves, a familiar voice, deeper and more matured, yet unmistakable, called his name. "Ethan?" Turning around, Ethan's breath caught in his throat. There, standing before him, was Amir. Older, wiser, yet still the same boy with the same kind eyes he had known all those years ago. Time seemed to collapse around them. They embraced, laughter mingling with tears as they caught up on the years they had lost. The promise they had made as children had not been broken, it had simply been waiting, like an ember beneath the ashes, ready to ignite once more. Rekindling the bond. They spent the rest of the evening in a small cafe, talking for hours. Amir shared stories of his struggles, the hardships his family had faced as immigrants, the weight of expectations, and the loneliness of being in a place where he never fully felt at home. Ethan spoke of the people he had met around the world, the stories that had shaped him, and the quiet ache of missing his best friend. As they sat together, it became clear that though time had changed them, it had not erased what they once shared. There was a comfort in their friendship that years of separation could not diminish. Before parting ways that night, Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a worn-out, faded letter, written decades ago. "I kept it," he said softly. "Your last letter to me. I never forgot." Amir took it in his hands, his fingers trembling slightly. "Neither did I." A promise fulfilled. The next morning, Ethan and Amir stood on a hill overlooking the city, watching the sunrise, just as they had watched the sunset all those years ago in their small town. "We made a promise," Amir said, his voice steady. "And we kept it." Ethan smiled. "We did. And this time, we won't lose touch." Some friendships are not bound by time or distance. Some connections withstand the storms of life. And some promises, once made, are destined to be kept forever.